It's Giuliana, and my passion time question was, can I teach people about slavery and the Civil War and the Underground Railroad by writing a historical fiction story? And and so I did a lot of research and I wrote a story. It's called Strong, and the setting is Richmond, Virginia in 1863 in a plantation. And this is the main character called Lucy, and she's a slave, and right now she's picking cotton. I plucked a ball of cotton and put it in my basket. Next to me, Patsy did the same. I would love to sit under the shade of a tree and rest on such a hot June day, but that is impossible. The chances of me doing that without getting treated to 10 lashes are almost as low as the chances of Master Bass ever liking me. I gave up on that idea years ago. When I was 19, 4 years ago, I put too much water in some crops and ruined every seed Mistress Elizabeth saved for a year. She came to the gardens to see her precious seeds growing in the Virginia sun, but what she saw was mud all over the place. Although it wasn't my fault that it happened, it was, after all, my job not to let that happen. Master Bass considered hanging me in front of all the slaves, but Mistress Elizabeth preferred 40 lashings and no meals for 2 weeks. You destroyed the things to make meals? You don't get meals. Those were her exact words. 40 lashes and 4 years later, I still have scars on my back. Also, the little speck of ice that Master Bass has for a heart hasn't grown. How I know? Just look at his black eyes. If you do, you'll be surprised to know that they are eyes. They look more like dark tunnels that you see in your bad dreams. As I plucked another ball of cotton, Isaac walked up to me with a smile, as always. His dark skin was dotted with sweat. His black hair was crispy looking. Although he isn't clean, he's still my best friend. The one person who has my back, can be trusted, and will never leave me behind. When I'm hungry, he gives me the least moldy piece of his bread. When my eyes burn from the sun while walking, he tears out a piece of fabric from the bottom of his baggy pants and hold it over my head when I walk. If I'm cold in the winter, he gives me his jacket. He treats me unlike the slave I am, but the mayor of Virginia. "How you doing, Lou?" he said in a casual voice. He sounded unusually chipper, but then again he was always chipper, just not as much. "Zach, what's wrong? You look like a spirit is holding your mouth into a smile." "Why not? So many reasons to be happy today. The bread is half moldy as usual, no labor in the afternoon, the sun is shining, everything anyone would want on such a fine June day." "Zach." I grabbed a hold of his hand to stop him from prancing another bit. "What is going on?" "This," he said with a wink. As he took a piece of paper folded into a tiny square, something happened inside his black eyes. They aren't black like Master Bass's, but filled with heat and warmth, like staring into a hot cup of tea in the winter. I saw a hint of something I've never seen before, something that could be the death of one. It's something so bold and courageous no slave could ever dare to have. Curiosity. You might think it's something so small and meaningless, but if you are a slave that asks too many questions, you just want to ask to be whipped for every drop of curiosity inside of you that comes out. When Isaac finished unfolding the piece of paper, I gasped. Newspaper about the war. Us slaves can't read. Neither can we own anything to actually read. If we see a page of a book on the grass, we try to avoid looking at it because we don't want to be accused of reading, which would result in getting our fingers cut off. But newspaper about the war? My lord, that's hidden treasure. I almost pranced around in the fields, singing in the sun. But what would Master Bass think of that? I kept the joints out of me and replaced it with a new feeling. "Zach, this is dangerous. What if they find out? What would they do to you?" I told him in a more than a whisper voice. "Relax, they won't. Why are you so tense? It's news about the war, Lou. The war. We know nothing about it. Only the small information we hear when Master Bass talks about Mr. Smith. Talks to the Mr. Smith. Don't you want to know? What? Where did they attack Virginia and who won? The Union might win this, and we need to know the chances of them winning before we get our hopes up. We need to know. I need to know." I felt bad for him in that moment. I know he always wanted to be a lawyer, but as a slave on a plantation, impossible. I also really want to know more about the war. I'm not up to telling Master Bass about it either. "Okay," I said with a sigh. "But haven't you forgotten something? None of us folks know how to read. How are you going to read the paper?" "Lou, oh Lou, Do you think I am idiotic enough not to think of that? I may not be able to read, but I sure know some people who do. You know good old Platt? Yeah, the elder feller slave of ours. He knows how to read. I already talked to him, and that old feller agreed to read it to us tonight. A few other people wanted to listen to it, so expect a crowd of 10. He finished his sentence with a wink. Then he turned around and walked back to Mistress Elizabeth's garden. Gather round, said Platt with a thin, raspy voice. His wrinkled dark skin was barely visible in the poor lighting. A candle moved side to side as people sat around the man. Isaac, give me the paper. When Isaac passed him the small square, he didn't hesitate. After unfolding the paper, Platt spoke in his thin voice. Daily Dispatch, Richmond, Virginia, Sunday morning, June 28th, 1863. War recap. The Civil War is the thing to talk about these times. The war is raging through the country, and before we get in with the details, let's recap the war so far. Causes and reasons of the war. President Abraham Lincoln wanted the Confederate slaves to be slavery-free, so that they can truly be a country. Although he was president, they didn't follow his orders because they needed slaves, in a way none of the northern states do. The Confederate States started arguing with the Union, saying that they didn't want to separate from them, they wanted to separate from them and form a new country. When the Union denied that, the Confederate Party started attacking the northern states. It went on until the Union had to defend themselves. Battle after battle, the Civil War was formed. Lincoln insists this war is about reuniting the Union, but at this point we all know it's about keeping or ending slavery. If the Union wins, slavery will be abolished from the from the United States of America. Union and Confederate States. Union States. Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine. Confederate States. Missouri, Kentucky, Virginia, Delaware, Maryland, Arkansas, Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas. Generals. Currently, Robert E. Lee is the general of the Confederate Army, taking orders from Jefferson Davis, the Confederate president. Just today, the Union Army General Joe Hooker has been replaced by George Meade, who is willing to fight for the end to reform the Union. The commanding general of the Union Army is Ulysses S. Grant, while Robert E. Lee is for the Confederate Army. Battles. The majority of the battles in the Civil War were in our own Virginia. This might be because it's a very important state, one that the Union is likely to target. Also, it is bordering the northern states, meaning that it's easier to enter it. Other than Virginia, Union and Confederate states bordering each other were often the battlefield. In the start of the war, the Confederate Party was winning almost every battle until 1862, the second year of the war. Then they only won about one battle out of four. Present. Robert E. Lee is now leading his army to invade Pennsylvania. They started going towards Pennsylvania on July 3rd. We have no report on them and no idea where they are now. The Confederate Party isn't sure if the Union Army knows about these plans, but the answer is a likely no. We will bring more news on the war tomorrow. Everyone was silent. Platt was still staring at the paper, which he just read out loud. Isaac just stared at me. The curiosity in his eyes were like the flames Master Bax has us cooked chicken over. Wild and untamable. That was it, said Platt, breaking the silence. The information on the war. He stood up, walked over to Isaac, and handed him the paper. Thank you for this. I now know more than enough. Hide it, he whispered, his eyes locked on the newspaper. Then he walked to his quilt, laid down, and fell asleep. Wasn't that amazing? A boy no older than 13 piped up. Now we know who's commanding the armies, where the battles were out, and that we might have a chance of being free. Some people danced. It was so brave. Some people gasped. It was so brave for someone to speak out like that, yet so dangerous. What if Master Bass or Mistress Elizabeth were here? Child, you mustn't speak like that. What if someone hears? You may not believe it, but don't say it. You may believe it, but don't say it. A woman, maybe around 50 years of age, scolded at him. Sorry, Auntie Mary, he mumbled, eyes locked on the floor. It's okay, William, she replied. Now go to bed. I suggest the same for all of you fellows. Go get your heads wrapped around all of this. As soon as she finished, everyone, including me, went to their quilts. I noticed Isaac looking at me, signaling me to go talk to him. I would have if I didn't know that if Master Bass saw us awake at this hour, it'd probably be 20 lashes for each person. I laid on the floor with my blanket over me. Never did I think that I might have a chance of escaping this life, but now I know that maybe, just maybe, I might. It may take a few years, and thousands of lives will be sacrificed, but it's still possible. Just maybe. That thought put me to sleep. If they were to win, where do you want to live? Isaac asked me in a hushed voice after I told him to be quiet when talking about these things. Zach, they're going to hear us. Why do you ask me these questions? Because, Lou, the Union might win this. What if they do? You need to have at least an idea of what you want to do. Fine, I said with my arms crossed. Canada. Somewhere in Canada. Canada? Isaac seemed confused but yet surprised at the same time. Why Canada? Because I want to get away from this crazy country. What if we still don't get equal right after the war? I'm not sticking around to find out. Send me to the middle of nowhere in Canada and I'll be happy. Great, because wherever you go, I'll go with you. I was actually kind of shocked to hear him say that. I mean, okay, he probably meant it. But would he go to Inferno if I went? When I was about to reply, Master Bass came out of his house and into the gardens. Isaac? Has anyone seen Isaac? Zach's face turned white. He was as stiff as a stick. Go, Zach, I told him reassuringly. He doesn't seem mad. He nodded, but still looked terrified. I patted him on the back, and he walked towards Master Bass. Follow me, I heard the man's cold voice. He led Zach around the corner of the house. I didn't see Zach until mealtime. I picked up some moldy bread when he plopped down next to me. Zach, I exclaimed. I was happy to see him. Well, I was, until he lifted his face. His black eyes were filled with tears. His face so miserable it made me want to cry. Zach, what's wrong? He opened his mouth to speak. A second later, the words came out. Master Bass, is going to sell me. When he let out a single sob, I gasped. To whom? Where is that person going to take you? Isaac seemed a bit better. To a man called Master Knox. He's going to take me to Texas, he sighed. What? I almost screamed it out. How's he going to Texas? He's certainly not going in a wagon. This Master Knox is going to do it in a cruel way. When are you leaving? I asked in a whisper. He looked down, tears trickling down his cheeks. Tomorrow morning, he blurted. Then he stood up and walked away. The next morning was a blur. I was waiting to see Isaac leave when he ran up to me. Zach, what's wrong? He put his hands on my shoulders and stared at me. He didn't look sad, but not happy either. He looked anxious. Lou, I have an idea. It sounds crazy and impossible, but it might work. Calm down, Zach. What's your idea? We should run away. I almost screamed. Run away? We don't even know what way's north. Okay, maybe we do, but only at night. What do I tell him? No, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. You can go if you want, but I'm not. Okay then, he said calmly. If you don't go, then I won't. I will let him carry me off to Texas. You decide my fate. Just then, Master Bass called from the front of the field. Isaac, time to go, he yelled. Isaac just looked at me, waiting for me to do something. Escaping seemed stupid, but this is also about him. Plus, there's a slight chance we will make it. There was no time to lose. What I did next wasn't for me. It was for Isaac. I turned around and ran out of the plantation. I heard Isaac catch up to me. We ran past the plantation limits and into the woods ahead of us. My hair flew behind me as the twigs scratched my face. I could see Isaac behind me, hands in front of him to break any sticks in the way. I heard in the distance Master Bass gathering some of his men. All I thought about was breathing and running. Breathe in, breathe out, run. We walked a couple of hours without speaking. The same direction the whole way. We ran until the sun went down. When the stars came out, Isaac and I found out that we were going northwest the whole time. Good enough. We should go in the same direction tomorrow. It'll get us north, I said. He nodded in agreement. A few minutes passed and Isaac broke the silence by singing a song that we sing when we see stars. After a few verses, I joined in. When the sun goes back and the first quail calls, follow the drinking gourd. When the old man's waiting to carry you to freedom, follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. For the old man's waiting to carry you to freedom, follow the drinking gourd. The riverbed makes a mighty fine world, dead trees to show you the way. And it's left foot, pack foot, traveling on, follow the drinking gourd. The river ends between two hills, follow the drinking gourd. There's another river on the other side, follow the drinking gourd. I thought I heard the angels say, follow the drinking gourd. The stars in the heavens gonna show you the way, follow the drinking gourd. We sang the melody until I fell asleep. The next morning, Isaac and I realized how hungry we were. We found some berries that were safe to eat and put them in bags made from our jackets. We ran for a bit, then walked a bit. After about 4 hours of that, we sat on a rock and ate some berries. As we tried to estimate where we were, I suddenly changed topic. "What time is it?" I asked. "I don't know, about to stop." The shout came behind us. It startled me so much that I almost fell off the rock we were sitting on. "Turn around," another voice shouted. Isaac and I both turned around to face two soldiers wearing blue, muskets loaded, pointed at Isaac and I. My heart skipped a beat. What if they're Confederate soldiers? What would they do to us? "Who are you?" one soldier asked. He was young, at most 25, and had blonde hair and bright blue eyes. The other soldier was older, maybe 35, and had brown hair and an olive complexion. Isaac glared at me, as if to say, tell him the truth. I nodded back and told him my whole story. When asked, Isaac told his half of the story. After he finished, the brown-haired man once spoke. "Whoa, you folks are lucky that we're from the Union Army. You know that. You don't know about that, right?" I nodded as a gush of relief came through me. These people might help them. "Excuse me, sir," I said to the blonde one. "Is there any way I could ask you, why are you here?" "Why I'm here?" he replied with a grin. "I suppose I can tell you. But may I know your names?" "I'm Lucy. This is Isaac." I touched his shoulder when I said that. "Great to know, Lucy," said the blonde one again. "My name is William, and this here," he said, poking the other soldier in the chest, "is Charles. You know about the Confederate Army moving into Pennsylvania, right?" "Good. Well, the Union Army is secretly going toward them to drive them out of our state. There is probably going to be a battle, a big one. The Union Army is bringing about 82,000 soldiers. We don't know where the Confederates are, but we think we'll find them around a town called Gettysburg, but we're not sure. We fell behind a bit, so we better get going." William started walking forward when Charles stopped him. "Wait, they need help. Maybe we can take them to the nearest town, find them somewhere to sleep, and then see what we'll do with them." Charles had a much lighter tone than I expected. He looked tough, but I could see his soft side. William considered the idea and said, "Fine, but don't bother us during the walk. If you fall behind, then we won't wait for you. Now come on." They started running through the bushes, then walking. It went on for hours, stretching into night time until they reached a village in the early morning, Gettysburg. And who was waiting there from the town? The Confederate Army, dressed in gray, ready to fight. Luckily, since they were far away, they didn't see us. William and Charles found an empty cabin for Isaac and I to stay in the far end of the town. It doesn't have any windows, but it will have to do," said Charles. "Okay, don't come out of this cabin, no matter what. Unless the Confederate Army tries to get in, don't get out. This battle might take a while, so I'll check on you every, say, 3 days." Charles and William then emptied their pockets and found about 4 days' worth of cornmeal. "Eat your berries, too. Remember, for your own sake, stay in the cabin." Charles said those words, and with that, they were gone. The whole afternoon and evening was filled with one thing: sound. Cannons, gunshots, screams. They were everywhere. At one point I got so scared that I let it all out. I cried and moaned for hours. Isaac was silent for the whole time, and all he did was hold me. After about 12 hours in the cabin, Zach dozed off. After a while, so did I. The next day, it was the same, just even worse. I could hear double the screams of pain and more people running around than ever. The worst part was that there was nothing to do but sit here all day, hearing the sounds of death. Isaac was calm and was one of the only reasons I haven't ran out of this cabin. No matter how hard I cried, he'd help me. He helped me. He believed I can live through this. Another day is gone and still no sign of this ever ending. We finished almost all of our food supplies today, but it doesn't matter. I'm not hungry. Anyway, today wasn't as violent as yesterday, but I still cried a bit. I really don't get the point anymore, because living was never so boring. On the night of the fourth day, Charles came to the cabin. As soon as he got in, he whispered, "It's over." "What do you mean?" I asked. He looked up. He was covered in sweat and blood. "Where's William?" Isaac asked behind me. "He got shot on the second day." The way he said it made it seem like it didn't really matter. Then again, he probably saw many people die. "First day was a disaster," he grunted. He grunted. "The Confederates were there first, so they got an advantage. They outnumbered us, and we had to retreat by sunset. Second day was even worse. We assumed new positions, but more people from the southern states arrived and fought. We got attacked from the left and the right. That day was a bloodbath, probably the most violent of the whole war. The third day, though, was better, much better. The Confederates tried to bombard us, but we got them surrounded. Barely half of their army escaped. Now they retreated back to Virginia." He flashed a grin. "Lucy, we won. I think I also know someone who might be able to get you in a house. Isaac, Lucy, you're free." Charles cheered a bit. Isaac and I grinned, but we stopped when we got outside. Dead bodies, everywhere, scattered all over the field, both from the Union and the Confederate Army. I suddenly felt awful. "Is that how much freedom costs?" "Hey," Charles said in a low voice, "I know you feel bad. All these people, they know that they have a chance of dying. They take that chance to give you freedom. It was them who did the sacrifice so that we could end slavery. Cheer up. I want you to meet someone. I think he can find you to a home." 3 years later, this was in 1966, and the war is already over. I woke up to the sound of birds chirping outside my window. The smell of evergreens came through the open window. Isaac, who was next to me, turned over in the bed and grinned at me. He sat out in a white bed in a room with white walls. "Good morning," he whispered, pushing some hair out of my face. I felt it land near my hip. Now that we lived in a cottage in the middle of a valley in Canada, I had no shards of glass to cut my hair with. Now it is a hip-length mess of tangled black hair. Although it is messy, I like it that way. The 12 other runaway slaves who live next to us call me Lion, because my hair seems like the description of a lion's mane. Every day, we take turns feeding each other, going to one another's houses, and reading the Bible. Life is so different from what it was 4 years ago. Sure, we still do chores, but now out of obligation, out of freedom. We all choose to come out here, start a village of 7 houses. Now we are all chipper, like Isaac always was, before and after the war. I have made a family here, a family I will never let go of. A family so great that I owe my life to the person who gave me this life. That person is me. I chose to run away from the plantation, go into the battlegrounds. I chose to be brave. It was the best choice I ever made. So, thank you for listening to my story, and I had a lot of fun making it. So, yeah.